Hello, everyone. Richard Carlton here. Welcome to Friday. It's 1 o'clock Pacific time, and we're already getting comments from our folks here, and it is 9 p.m. Friday in the Netherlands. And so we're seeing the comments. You see me looking over here. I'm looking at the comments, and then here's the demo. I'm Richard Carlton. I'm a 30-year experienced FileMaker developer. Been doing this for so long, I can't hardly remember the beginning, little bits. And we're happy to invite you to our daily live training event every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. We're here to answer your questions about the FileMaker platform. Generally, we'll take questions on all sorts of topics, but we try to pick some topics along the way. So today is on charting. So to help us along the way today, we have Calvin Mosiman. And Calvin, you want to show your face here so everyone can see your smiling face? Hello, Calvin.
Hey, how's it going?
Where's Calvin? Where's the shades, Calvin? What are you doing?
Oh, I was putting them on.
Okay, so this is his outfit. This is Calvin's. Apparently, that's a legitimately, I think, a blue or purple jacket, and this is so we will promise a hat to a person who can properly identify who this reminds me of off of movies. Right. So welcome back. Yep. So. If you have the name of the person who this reminds you of in the TV, if he was wearing a flamboyantly purple jacket and he liked to shag a lot or whatever, right? So that's Mike Myers. I gave it away, unfortunately. So I saw this and it was like, wow, wow. So Calvin, tell us about what we're doing today.
Today we're going to be looking at charts, and FileMaker charts, and how to set them up, and what we can make with them and play around with them a little bit.
That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Let me see here. I'm going to try to, can I set you? Well, it kind of works that way. No, he went away. Are you going to be showing your screen now?
Yes.
Okay, right on. So I'll keep it right there. I'm going to make it big. So I'm going to disappear for everyone, and then I'll be over here answering questions. And Calvin's going to be talking about charts in the FileMaker platform. Now, up front, Calvin, before we get too far, are you going to be... he thought you'd be younger. No. People are guessing over here. Once again, there's a delay in the guessing. Indiana Jones. Yeah. No, if he had a giant hat, not with the. Remember that's a blue/purple jacket. That's, yeah, very 70s, early 70s. So we're doing charting today. We're talking about the built-in chart capabilities in FileMaker. We're not using plugins today, and there are some serious performance considerations when doing charting, so we're going to be addressing performance as well. So today is going to be a performance day as well as a charting day. If your questions are about that, we'll take them in flight. We'll take your questions in flight. If someone asks me about what do you think about the prices of FileMaker, then we might save that till the end. So I'm going to go ahead and make you full screen over here, Calvin. So there is your screen. We are broadcasting, by the way, everyone, at 1080 high definition. And so if you're not seeing 1080, then you want to make sure that you check your settings on your YouTube or on Twitch. We're broadcasting to both locations. Austin Powers, thank you, folks. Austin Powers, absolutely. Schwing, yeah. So I said, holy cow, it's Calvin Powers. And but Calvin's been around with us for a long time, since you were a college student, and now he has 3 kids, and he lives on the East Coast in the United States. So for him, it's about 3 hours ahead. So it's, 4 o'clock your time about, Calvin? 4?
Yes, it is.
4. Now, just so everyone knows, the Twitch, if you're caught up with the latest Twitch broadcast, you're about 60 seconds behind. The people on YouTube, I think, are upwards of about 2.5 minutes behind. So there's a little bit of delay, but you can put comments in either spot, and I am looking for that. So let's talk about the charting. So this charting is really pretty. By the way, before anyone gets, well, I want to show something real quick here on the charting. This is really cool. So Calvin has built this charting sample. You are going to get this charting sample tonight or tomorrow sometime or whenever. We just have to just do one pass through on the cleanup on it. But what I want to do is I want to show you what this looks like. If I go to QuickTime and I say new movie, and I'm going to switch myself from that screen to the iPad right here. This is the chart on the iPad. So it looks identical, it works, and not only that, when Calvin designed it, if you turn the iPad, so I'm going to go ahead and move myself over here so you can see me with this. I have, let me move up here, and then you see my iPad, I'm going to rotate it, and then it actually displays the chart like that. And it does kind of readjust and adjust in flight. We do have a little word over here. I don't know what that, is that over there on the same one? Yeah, you got some weird field that got MES over there on left of the green cost there. I don't know if you see that on your layout. Let me see. Is it on the?
Yeah, I just took that off.
Oh, did you? Okay, so.
Yeah, it's left over from something I was dragging on.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, so it rotates pretty good, and it seems to display pretty great on FileMaker Go. So once again, you build it in Pro, generally it will look pretty good in Go, which is always really great. I haven't tried it with WebDirect, but there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the QuickTime off for now. I'm going to go back to you. So you're full screen. So walk us through, actually just use it first like a user would use it, and then let's dive under the hood once we do that, okay?
Okay, so this is a based on a chart setup that I put together for someone. They wanted to see some cost data over a given period of time and where the invoices were going, who was responsible for them, and what type of invoices there were. So we've got these cost breakouts of a grand total, how much was sold during that time, and then we've got this bar chart to show us which states we're servicing. Then we have a pie graph breaking out how many orders were each staff person was responsible for how many of each order, and then what we were selling, services or products. And then here at the bottom, we've got three lines in our line graph to show the gross amount sold, the net, and what the cost was. And and we see the timeline on that from January through June of last year. And then up here in the top left, we've got this refresh button that lets us refresh and see the data.
Okay.
Now, go ahead.
Well, as soon as you do that, you have to explain why you have to refresh the data and what you did. What makes it special?
Right. So in this implementation of these charts, they aren't dynamic. The data is getting cached into fields. If we look into this in the database, managed database, we've got a number of fields that are all storing that data for the chart. And it only refreshes when I select the refresh button, and that's pulling from an invoice table over here. But you can see that as soon as I'm going to just put a few more zeros on this grand total, and go back over to the chart and say refresh, and you'll see that immediately change. We got our up here our grand total changed, and our whole chart. Maybe I added too many zeros because it suppressed everything else. Let's go back. But you'll see that it changed the graph here as well. Let me go back and take some zeros off there so our data still looks pretty. And refresh that again. And as soon as it goes through the process of setting those fields, it updates those items. So how do we go about figuring out
why? This is where I interrupt you, and then people get mad at me for interrupting you. But why? Why? Because when people first learn to build charts, they don't build them this way. How would they build them? How would they build the charts? I'm not saying for you to do it, but explain to me what your brand new person who's been working, say you're working with FileMaker for 6 months or a year, you've never done charts, and so then you're going to throw a chart on. How would you normally build that?
Yeah, so usually when you're building a chart, you're going to, the easiest way is to base it on your found set, or base it on a calculation, or base it on some unstored through a relationship. So
I'll give everyone a big hint. You're going to use a lot of these fields right here.
Okay? Yeah, a lot of summary fields.
And what happens when you do summary fields like that, and then you do anything? What do you see on the screen? Right? Little progress bar thing right here. And it starts motoring across, progressing, calculating, 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 calculating. And about that time, everyone goes, FileMaker sucks, right? Right? So That's the difference in performance. We get into these performance issues. And so what I'm trying to do is Calvin already thinks automatically in terms of performance. I need him to unwind his brain and bring it back to like normal a little bit. And that's what I'm not picking on you, Calvin, but this is, once you have a lot of experience like Calvin does, he's a very established senior engineer, does a lot of work with customers, but he helps make things fast. If you build things with summary fields, every time you brought this, so if we just change layouts, like just change a layout to anything else, like this one there, go check. Now, if you jumped back right now to the chart, there'd be a huge delay. You wouldn't see any of this, and you'd get a big progress bar, processing. Then it would show everything. Notice how it's snappy and quick. That's because the data is cached. We're not doing unauthorized calculations behind the scenes. Very, very, very important. So Calvin, start walking us through it.
Okay, so so all of those fields are we're setting them with a script, and they just sit there. They don't change. They don't update automatically. We have to trigger it to update. In your app, you might have an on layout enter trigger to run it, but initially, but it's not something that needs to refresh as much as a summary field would. So this is kind of the end result that we want to get to, but we might. How do we get there? And so first is just figuring out what kind of data you want to see. So the one thing that we can do, and I haven't tried this. I was trying this on a local file, but we'll see that performance issue come up. If we sort by the state, we have this option to create a chart, and this is called the quick charts, chart by bill to state. I'm going to select that. It's going to think about it for a second and give me this option, and we already see our live data here. And let's go ahead and we'll leave it as a column. All of our chart options are here on the right. We'll make it that green, and I'll just say save as layout. And this is going to be our new chart layout. And this is doing it and this is the easy way. It's doing it where it's going to be based on those summary fields. And if we look in the database definitions here, so it created a new layout. It even created a new script. If we look over here at the chart script, we've got this new script that it just added that sorts the records. And if we look in the database and sort by creation order, it created this new bill to state count, which is that summary field.
We are, and by the way, we are getting just so everyone knows, we are getting a little pixelation here on the layout as he moves through layouts, and that's because the data feed. I could actually I'll cut back on the data coming in here, but I still need to keep the what I'm trying to do. Let me see if I can pop out. Can I close this? Yes, okay. What I'm doing is I'm no longer monitoring the video feed that are coming out. I'm just trying to optimize the data coming in so your data gets through us faster. So I want to make sure people can still see me here. Yes, hello. So good. All right, you may continue, Calvin. there's a little pixelation, and I'm trying to keep the quality up, so I trim things back here just a little bit. So you may continue.
Okay, so just to recap where we are so far, this is kind of the end result that we're going toward, but how do we figure it out? The first thing I often do is start with that quick chart just so I see what I want my data to look like. The next thing I do is I often like using one of these, is I have a test chart layout. And so this gives me, I have fields for each of my X and Y coordinates. And then I can just paste data in here and see what that looks like. And you can see here, this is a sample that I was putting some data together for a medical thing. Let's go over to the second one.
Calvin question. So David, so basically, okay, so let me answer. David is asking a question. Do you duplicate the table and import and then need to refresh? David, the way this works is actually the exact same way we do it in Starting Point. And there's a slight difference in it. We'll identify that when we get there. But the essential items are, one, Calvin, go ahead and just pop to the core data here, their core data that we're trying to report on. This yeah.
The
So
invoices, yeah.
so this data is the core data, right? And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to run on our own. We're not using calculation fields or summaries. What we do is we run a script. It's going to grab blocks of this data. It's going to total it. It's going to amortize it. And then it's going to, if you come over here, for example, the script is going to total up sections here, total up sections here, total up sections. Then it's going to write, okay, don't do that. It's going to write the data into these spots here if you see that, right? All right, you just moved again, Calvin. Am I moving or am I driving? Let me see here. Calvin, can you go back to the sample, please? Calvin, yeah, there you go. All right, so yeah, right there. One of those would be great. We're having a lag here, Calvin, just so you know. Pretty decent lag. So once again, the concept here, it's a very important concept. It goes into lean design extensively, but it's also what I try to teach basically in our second level of learning. From beyond basic, kind of the intermediate skill, we're going to take groups of records. We're going to say, give me the total, and then we start dropping them into these spots in here. So the data, the totals are already saved. This is a number field, right, with values in it. And so we save the data in here. Then the chart is only referencing this. So the chart, no calculations have to be done at all, which is the whole idea. So basically, when we run the script to update things, generally what would happen is we would clear this data out, then run the calculations to drop the data back in, this group here and this group here. And so you understand what I'm doing, right? That makes sense, folks out there? I know there's a lag in it, but yeah, that's kind of the question. Does that make sense? So we're getting questions there, Calvin, and I just want to make sure we answer those.
Right, right. So the great. So starting here, we've got this the state bar graph. We figured out kind of what we wanted that to look like by creating this quick chart. And now I'm going to mess around with one of these sample layouts, and where I can put in the data manually and figure out how it is that I want that. So I'm just going to open this up, and let's go ahead and duplicate this layout. I'm going to just call this one chart 3. And this is going to be, we'll open it up. And I'm going to create a new record. So so it doesn't have any data in it. Our chart isn't showing anything. And now I'm going to look at my information over here and see how I want that to look. So we want on the data, we want our states on the X coordinates. So California, Florida, and New York. Let's see what happens here. We don't have any data in there. Let's just put in some numbers and see what happens here. So we got a pie chart. That's not what we wanted, a bar chart. Let's go select the chart information. And here the first thing we have is a selection of all the options that we want, or that we have options for. And I'm going to go to a column chart, and it will immediately update it. And we don't want to change what fields it's referencing, because in case we want to mess around with those. And in this case, we're only using one series. So I'm going to delete these other series in there. Say OK. And so I've got my 3 states and my 3 numbers, and I can mess around and just make sure that this is how I wanted it to look. And before I start, then I'll start writing that script to tally the data and such. And so, but what's really helpful is having these fields referencing all the parts, the X coordinates, the Y coordinates, and the titles, just so I can visualize and figure out what it is that I want to copy over into my dashboard or wherever we're creating this
Right. Can I interrupt, Calvin?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we don't have too much of a verbal lag. You and I are pretty much in sync. The people are running behind. They like the description. Something we kind of blew past at about 900 miles an hour. If you go to layout,
Mm-hmm.
just go to layout mode here real quick with this. So we're going to give you the sample file, but it's important to understand that these are just fields we define. They're text and number fields. This right here is a charting object. And I don't know, did you explain where that comes from? I mean, maybe we just assumed it came from someplace, but
Yeah,
it's that one there, right?
yeah. I didn't explain that. So up here in the toolbar, we have this chart option that looks like a bar chart, and we just I'll create a new one here to show you. I'll add this, and it opens up this chart selection, and everything's blank to begin with. But what I'll do, and you can just type right in here, title 1, title X, and you can type in your data. The data can be a calculation. Excuse me, I'm just specifying a field to make it easier to interact with the data. But you could even do a calculation and say list California, Florida, New York, or something like that. And so there's a few different ways. What I like to do though is having it reference those fields. So I'll select specify field name, and here is the X title. So I'll select X title. Here I'll select field name this is the X data. So X data. And then for the Y title, I'll select Y title. And then the Y data, and for Y you can put multiple series. So we might say add a second series, a third series. For this particular one, I don't have the. Well, let's look at what that would seem like, what that would look like. So if we add a series 2, and I'm going to specify the field name as Y series 2 data. Let's go ahead and say done, so we can start messing around with this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't want to derail you too much. I just wanted people to understand that that's where we give birth to the object. So what you created was basically this little cheat sheet that allows us to basically play and simulate with what we think the chart should look like. So we play with it, we simulate it, and so we have these numbers and text fields over here. The chart renders in time here. Notice that when we make a change here, it's instant over here. Whenever you have charts that are running and you start seeing progress bars and slow things, it's because it's running against all the because you could generate this chart from millions of records, right? And even the refresh button, if you have millions of records, then we can talk about other performance things we can do to make that run faster. But the idea becomes one where it's like you could run PSOS and have the calculation run on the server for you. So what could happen is that this is currently running up on FileMaker Cloud 2 on a server, our test server that we talked about the other day, and we're going to talk about it, I think, on Monday quite a bit. But the idea is that you could have millions of records, and maybe you don't want to process them. Like right now, remember you saw me on the iPad would actually do the same scripts and the same math. So is that really optimal that way? Maybe you tell the server to do the data collection for you. So you tell the script to run, we click it here, but it actually goes over to the server over here back in California, wherever the server's at, and then it does the math for you, and it fills these things in for you, but the data is local for the server. The data is living on the server hard drive, so the server can do the scripts really fast, and then it just populates this for you. And then on your screen, it just updates. All your machine has to do, it doesn't have to calculate these. All it has to do is take these numbers here and translate them into the chart. So that's another performance tip. PSOS with caching, and then and that's how you're going to make this run fast. Otherwise, for example, if you look at there's a CRM solution that FileMaker Claris Incorporated puts out. They don't really promote it that much. They made their charts in that solution. I could pull it up for you, but they made their charts in that solution such that every time you came to a layout, it would calculate the charts. I mean, this is coming from Claris, and I'm like, guys, right? I sent them a note, and they're like, what? And I'm like, have you tried to load any records in here? Like, say, 10,000, put 10,000 records on it, put it on a server in the cloud. It becomes totally unusable because they didn't know or think to put the data in a cache like this. And so every time you have the chart, it has to do all this math, right? And it's on 10,000 or 20,000 records. And then not only that, they don't use PSOS, but they make the local device do all the math. So in order for this machine to do the math, it has to, remember that spreadsheet over here, the spreadsheet, but the list of data, it has to load all that data down to our client, even our iPad, do the math here, then load it here. And so if you could screw up a chart, that is a sample solution that shows absolutely everything not to do. And it wasn't just me. The other consultancies were like pulling their hair out going, oh, what the hell? So, because you don't want to demo your solution or demo a product and then have it run as slow as feasible, right? I mean, that's never the goal, right? So, kind of funny, unfortunately. But that's why I'm harping on the performance issue. It's half of this conversation is about making the chart. The other half that I'm talking about is making sure the chart doesn't suck, right? So making charts and how to keep them from sucking should be the title of this webinar. So Calvin, I think I covered that now. So you can, if you want to get rid of this one object, you can get rid of this one object and then go back to the one you had, right, underneath. I think it's still loaded.
Yeah, I was actually going to just stick with this and show the kind of see how we can figure out to get this to work. So we'll look at the data here, and one of the problems here, because we created this just pulling it right. I really like the word you used, the cheat sheet. I already had a bunch of settings in that layout object to make it easier for me and have some predefined ones. By default, it has this thing checked right. This option checked in the data source for the chart. Summarize groups of records. So it's designed to work considering the entire found set, not the current record. So we'll need to change that to individual record data. So we're only looking at the current record that we're on. The one time that I do use summarize groups of records is sometimes for reporting that's being done on the server, because that can still run really fast. I have a report that runs every Monday and sends out some inventory stats. And that uses the summarized groups of records, but it's run on the server, so it's run really fast, and doesn't cause it's waiting. The report ends up in everyone's inbox early in the morning and doesn't cause a lag while people are working on the app. So I just changed it from summarizing data to looking at the current record, and we'll see that it still doesn't. It still is considering other record data. Let's see what's going on here. So now it's saying the chart data is, instead of the current record, it's looking at the found set. So let's say just the current record, and that's what I really want. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so we'll see our series A, our first Y series is this list here, and so the first line here, which correspond with California, we've got a value of 50 and 70. Here's the 50 and 70, how that corresponds. The second is Florida here. And you'll see the 70 and 90 correspond with Florida, 70, 90. And then the final one, 90, 40, corresponds with the third line in the the X data series, New York, 90 and 40. So this gives you this, again, it's like a cheat sheet to figure out how you want that data to display. And then we would copy these fields over into a master or a layout that would track those records. And this will work with any kind of chart you're messing around with, whether it's the bar chart or line chart. The other nice thing about having this here is you can kind of mess around with what those different charts would look like. So I'm going to, instead of a bar chart, let's try a line chart, which doesn't really make sense for the kind of data we're looking at. But you can kind of see how that would be, how that would look. And then with a multi-series, we can look at the stacked column. That would be a good one to see, and how those would look together. And so we've got the series Y, the first Y series on the bottom, and the second series on the top. And as you're messing around with it, you'll figure out more about it, and how to bring that layout object just the way you want it over in your master layout.
Pretty cool. Questions, folks? There was a conversation about Nick Hunter and the lean design, and the conversation was maybe Nick should help him with their starter solutions. I'm like, yeah, that's yeah. So anyway, yeah. I mean, Nick is a tremendous asset for whoever has him. The trick is that you have to be prepared to deal when you have to. I mean, part of it being a good boss, to be honest, and this is a conversation going on in Twitch over here with Topcat, but the issue is that to be a good manager or boss or whatever, you have to be willing to be wrong. And not only that, you have to be willing to hear that you're wrong. And I've had a number of conversations where Nick told me I was screwing up because the performance should be this way and that way. And we went round and round and round. And then, but instead of me just getting pissed and firing people, I sit down and we work through the issue so I can understand what his issue is, and then I explained to him that maybe something he's doing is not super design oriented in terms of performance. I mean, it might be faster, but it's not clear, visually that it's clear. And so we go back and forth, and that's what happens with us. And so it was an interesting conversation. But yeah, Nick Hunter very much has his fingerprint all over RCC and the training that we're doing, and he's fantastic. He really is quite good. In fact, I was working with him yesterday and stuff. So for those of you who wonder about that, that's the gentleman who puts together the lean design course. So real quick, just to bring all that back to thing, I'm going to just take 1 second here, Calvin, and I'm going to see if I can drop. I'm not going to drop you out of full screen down to a small screen. For those of you who want to see what's going on. So if I go over here to the live training website and you hit individual courses and you hit this lean design, this is Nick Hunter here. And him and I go round and around and around, sometimes arguing in these videos here about stuff. But each of these is like 30 to 45, 50 minutes long. So it's a lot of content. But that's this guy. And I can't say enough good things about him. But when you have great people in the world, sometimes they get in your face and they tell you things you don't want to hear. And you have to be willing to listen to that and take that. So even Calvin's done that to me before. So, and obviously for those of you wondering about where we're hosting this, so everything Calvin's doing, are you on the local file, Calvin, or are you on the hosted file right now?
Actually, I've been on the hosted file the entire time. I was going to wait till it started chunking on me, and it never did.
Yeah, it never did. So currently, if I go, this is my FileMaker Cloud 2 interface. I can go to the host over here. I can pop the host web page up. You can see that we are actually doing all this. You got to be kidding us. Make me log on again. So Rick, make everyone can see this. Of course, my password should be fuzzed out. Hang on 1 second. Oh, I can just put my auto password in there. And so this is the administrative interface where we administer the users and licenses, stuff like that. And then over here is your typical FileMaker server interface. And if I go over to databases, then we have the chart sample right here, and it shows that me and Calvin's using this account right here. We're logged on using it. So this is all happening with real-time performance over the internet. In fact, Calvin is in Europe. Calvin's on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, right? That's where you're at? And he's accessing the server. This FileMaker server, I think, is in Oregon, I believe. And so all the way across the country, right? Then the data goes back to him and then back to me. So the data is why we see it chunk a little bit. The data is going back and forth across the country like twice or 3 times. So for those of you wondering, hey, this isn't local, this is real. So anyway, full screen, Calvin, you are, oh wait, hang on, questions. Topcat likes the cheat sheet concept. He likes that idea of calling it a cheat sheet. That's awesome. We love that. In an FMF, how much burden does a chart put on the overall performance to deal with it? Yeah, so EFG52, he's asking about how much chart. Basically, all it is, once again, this is why this is so fast, is that the chart is just going to take this data here, which is what, maybe I don't know, 10, 20, 30 elements of data. There's 10 there and 15 here and whatever. And I mean, maybe if you had like a really detailed chart, the up and down, and this, then you'd have maybe 100 elements. But the chart engine does that very fine. All it has to do is grab this cache data and display it. It's pretty damn fast. That's why it's in Starting Point. Whenever you open up Starting Point, those charts there, they operate identically. In fact, there's training in there already on this topic. And I explained to you how I created it under the hood. Now, Calvin creates it in a little bit more snazzy way. And we're going to get through that too. So, Calvin, you may continue. Sorry for, oh, hang on, one more question. EFG asked the performance. Really, once again, we're not using, when we display it, we're not grabbing all the summary fields and calculation fields. It's just these are text and number fields here. And so it's like instant. So, right? Cool.
Right. So do we want to look at the script and how our scripting options for this?
If you're done to that point, I was just making sure we answered questions as we went, right? So
yeah, I think so. We're just showing how we can show different data in these in this cheat sheet and throw our layout object, the chart object, to figure out what we want to see. And you'll see that sometimes these don't actually, and the other interesting thing is once you have some data saved in here, you'll see like the data here doesn't really, I guess this kind of makes sense. This is percentages of recovery for patients. But then here is a bar graph, and that you're looking at the different data sets in different, in that bar graph, or in that one kind of chart. So we can go through, once you have a bunch of these made, you can kind of look at your records and see how those would look in different charts that you've prepared. So this data set doesn't really make sense anywhere else. But if we look at this one, which is a pie chart, it doesn't really make sense here. But this is kind of interesting. If you're looking at months, how much was the percentages on each of those months. And so it kind of gives you, you can see some different options for what you have for charting, and try different data sets out through your charts that you have in your cheat sheet. So if we don't have any questions there, I'll briefly look at the scripting that we have for this refresh button. And we can open up FM Starting Point and see how it's done there a little bit differently. But this, just because I was putting this together as quickly as possible, I'm using an XQSQL to generate those lists.
Boo, 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 boo. Well, okay, so this is one of those moments where I argue with the engineers, and so he's going to explain this, and then I'm going to have him build a piece of this using kind of like normal FileMaker like talk, right? And this is where like we get into engineers who start doing like, super warp drive crap, and they're doing advanced linear algebra in their heads and stuff like that. If you're a legit coder, like a legit code person, this is like intimidating. I can't write SQL. I just can't. I understand. If I read it, I can kind of tell you what's going on. But if you ask me to generate it or train you on it, it's not something I can personally do because I don't do SQL databases. Calvin and these guys have learned enough. There is a limited support for SQL in the FileMaker platform. That probably should be another session that we have at some point. But what we're going to do is he's generating that data, that cache data with these, and he's going to explain that, but he's going to generate that cache data. And that data right there in the popover is the same as that other layout, right? And he's generating with SQL, which has certain advantages, but what I want to have him do is build piece or part of it using regular FileMaker steps. Because the idea is that SQL could be faster, but it's not always faster. And certainly for performance optimization, if you had a very long script, once again we send it to the server for it to do it for us. Makes things go faster, especially with this wide connected. But then Calvin and Nick Nick is not an SQL guy too, but he likes other stuff. And so this gets into this. See, this is where the argument comes in. Calvin, go back over here for me. So I would say this is really hard to train people on because I would need to train them on the charting. And I don't want to train them on something else that's kind of potentially kind of propeller head. And so this is where I go back and forth with the senior staff, and I'm looking at it from more the intermediate user's perspective. So we're going to explain both of you today and both of these, and then we'll make sure that the sample file kind of shows a little bit of both, right? So Calvin, does that make sense? So you didn't do anything wrong. It's just,
Yeah.
It's like you just said the word. What was the word the other day, and then you blew yourself up? It was kiosk. You said kiosk. Now today you said
I'm
SQL.
scared to even say it right now. So
all right, you're up. Go, baby.
Just to kind of briefly go over how this is put together, I have this kind of let statement formula where I'm pulling the states out of the invoices. And if you want to just see what the statement itself looks like, I'm going to say evaluate. So here's our select statement that this calculation put together. Select the bill to state from invoices where, I'm just making sure it's where the grand total is greater than 0. And then group by the state and order by state. And then so that gives me the result of these 3 states. And then I can use an accompanying calculation to do something. Instead of grabbing the state names, I'll grab the total count of orders or invoices for that state, and that gives me just that really nice return delimited list of data that correspond with each other, and I can pair them up in the chart to make that look nice without having to do a lot of loops in scripting requiring loops and exit loops and such. But we can look at that too.
Well, I mean, basically at this point you've covered. I mean, at this point you're writing SQL statements to load the data to cache. You showed them how to generate the chart. What else do you need? If I wasn't jumping on your case about the SQL, what else do you have to show? Let's finish that, and then we can kind of come to back and try to make it a little simpler on the back end.
I think that's about it. I just wanted to kind of emphasize the point. The best way to get these charts, especially in a layout like this where we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 charts. When I built this originally for a data set, the data set we're looking at is about 500 records. And if you had this running dynamically, it would be pretty slow. And the use case where I originally built some of these charts, they had hundreds of thousands of records that they wanted to evaluate. So using these fields was critical. They would have never been able to use something that was running those dynamic charts. It had to be done through scripting.
Okay. Well, and once again, yeah, and so why don't we go ahead and then take a swing at, so break off one chart. I mean, is it, or you know, go back, let's pick a chart that you want to do it, and this, you know, let's calculate it the other way.
We can do the states.
You want to do states that way? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to call this
now you got to do this live in real time, and so just so everyone knows it, we're not necessarily going to do a hard stop at the top of the hour. We're going to go until either Calvin dies in the webinar, literally death by Calvin, or we get to the end. So it might be another 45 minutes, or I don't know how long this is going to take. All right, Calvin. No pressure. No pressure, baby. No pressure.
I wasn't expecting this one. Okay, so we need to establish our list of values. So because this is based on a field, let's go ahead and to get that initial list of states, I'm going to go to File, Manage, Value Lists. And I'm going to call this one States Dynamic. and this is going to be based on a field. So I'll select invoices, and then we're doing bill to state. Okay. And now we can say, I'm going to use the data viewer to do this. Get value. Okay, so we're going to get the value list items from the current file, get file name, and then the value list was states dynamic, I believe. And so there's our list. So that wasn't too bad. I'm just going to copy that.
By the way, Calvin, you don't have a hard stop at 2 o'clock, I hope, right? Leave us hanging.
No, I don't.
Okay, great. I think this is going to be super educational for people to watch this, because you're going to teach them all sorts of other stuff here, I think.
Okay, so first we're setting the states variable, and now we're going to need to loop through that variable and find out the total count. In this case, we're doing count, but we could do the total price amount or something. So we'll do set variable, and I'm going to call this one just I. And what this does is it counts how many times we've gone through the loop. And then this new state variable is going to select one of those values from the list of states based on how many times we've looped. So get value, and our list of values is the states, plural, and the value number is how many times we've looped. So we'll use the I. Say OK. And now we need to exit the loop if, I'm just going to say is empty state. So if there's no state to find, we'll exit the loop. So the next thing we will do is, let's make sure we're in the right layout. Go to layout, and we'll say invoices. And now, just for the sake of clarity, I'm going to spell out the whole perform find. Enter find mode. Pause is off. Set field.
Hey, Calvin, keep going that. Just do it silently for a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to, because you just keep going. I'm going to comment this real quick. So this is really useful right here, what Calvin's doing. A lot of people will just do a enter or perform a find and not detail it out. And whenever I code or script, I prefer to write it out this way. Even though you could take 4 or 5 or 10 lines of code and put it into one line, when you're looking at the code, all you'd see is one line. It wouldn't really tell you what's going on. When you see those 3 lines right there, you know exactly what's going on. And once again, this gets back to me being, I want more verbose code. Potentially it's slower code, but we make up for the performance in other areas. 1, by caching it, and 2, by dumping it on the server, for example. But part of this is that being able to walk away from a year or 2 years or 5 years, come back to this and know what the hell you did, right, is so important. And so, because if I have engineers, there's people who say, I can build the whole database with 1 layout, 1 table, and 10 lines of code. And the problem is reverse engineering and understanding what they've done is almost impossible. So, Calvin, I'll let you go back here. So we're checking the found. We do a find, set variable to the found count. We're assuming that the found count won't be 0. Probably you'd want to do a test in there to verify that. We don't have to, but verify the found count's not 0, right?
So we can say if get last error, I think the found count would just be 0, so that would be the right amount.
Yeah.
But we can specify its list as 0. If it's a 0, and that was one problem that I did run into with the execute SQL, is if there's no value for something, but we want that item in the list, So say you have in this case, if there were a state that you wanted to keep on your dashboard to see how many sales you had there, but
Yeah.
there were no sales, you would need to put that, insert that 0.
So all you're following this. So what was happening of a value list, and FileMaker will do this sometimes too. If it runs into it's creating like that list command, like he used that list command up at the top right. Where was that list at? Get the list. Well,
line 17 list.
No, I'm looking at the set variable state. Well, that's the name, and then you get the count. Yeah, right there. So the idea is that if you have 50, say we have 50 states or whatever, but then 5 states are empty, you'd want to, FileMaker's default behavior is to kind of remove those spots out of there a lot of times. And so you'd have 45 entries, yet you still want to see those 5 states which are 0, right? And so it's very important to think about that. I mean, typically I think people would build charts, then they get a complaint from the customer and like, hey, it doesn't work because I don't see, Montana. Well, Montana was 0. Well, we didn't know that. It should have said that. So that's welcome to the 30 years of doing this. I can just hear people complaining in my head. So anyway, kind of funny.
Okay, so now we're going to finish it up by go to layout and our chart sample, and we want to set the state names with states and set the state counts with, we call the variable state values. Okay, and just to make sure that this happened live, let's go ahead and clear out those fields on the chart sample. And they're not on the layout at the moment, so I'm going to move them over. And often on these charts, I'll put this popover with all of my behind the scenes fields, just so it's easy to access and see what I'm doing there, especially if something's messing up, because often there's a bit of debugging to these things. So the data is going to be taller than wide, so let's just make this the same. Same here.
So we'll still have the SQL data there next to it.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out just so we can see what the results are.
Okay. So then the chart's gone.
Data here.
Yep.
What's that?
Chart's gone.
Yep. And let's go ahead and run this with the script debugger, see if we run into any problems. So go layout, and let's open the data viewer. So we see our states already. That looks good. Under find mode, perform find. And now we've got that list, 332. And you'll see that the I advanced to 2, and now we'll get the value of the second value in that list. So it went from California to Florida. We just added the second value in our list. And now we're doing the search on New York. And here it should be empty, so we'll exit the loop. Go back to our original layout and set those fields. So states, our state names popped up, and the values popped up as well.
Wow. You did that cold with no bugs on one pass. That's impressive. Very nice. So basically, so let's do a comparison realistically. Let's do a comparison here. So this block of code right here, this big mass of it's 26 lines, and there's still not, I'd put more in here to comment more. If it was me, it'd be another 10, 5 or 8 lines of commenting and stuff.
For sure.
But then the alternative is to do what? 1 line of SQL? How many lines of SQL did you?
It was 2 lines, 1 line for the state names, 1 line for the state counts.
Yeah, see, so I mean that's the benefit. So it makes the code more compact. FileMaker scripting, when it does loops like that, spinning loops, can be slow. It's not fundamentally necessarily a really fast process, but once again, we would pivot this out and kick this out to the server, and then people would only run it themselves, or you could have the server run it for you once an hour, so as people visit the charts, they're updated once an hour automatically. So it kind of resolves the problem. So at the top, from top to bottom, you saw us get out the cheat sheet for the chart, play with the chart, decide we want the chart to look like with the data. Then we, which is this right here, so we picked the chart, and then we played with it till we got it to look kind of the way we want with fake data. Then we had to populate the fake data with real data, and then you had a choice to make. You could write it with SQL if that's in your wheelhouse of skills, or you could do it with FileMaker code. And this is, I would have written it very, very similarly, slightly different. This was very clever right here to get a dynamic value list. I would have actually, that actually saved a lot of performance right there. That was a very good trick. I had not thought of that. I would have, yeah, that's a good question. I would have done a technique I learned in FileMaker 3 to solve the problem, which would have taken about 3 times as long for the code to operate. So that's pretty quick. So I think everyone's dead. It is technically 1:58, but I am here to take questions. You did that in about 12 minutes, Calvin. So 15 minutes with me interrupting you. That's pretty damn good.
Thank you.
So we're waiting for comments. So iMog.
Yeah, I just know another way that we could get a list like this together, and that would be using FileMaker's new summary field with a list option.
Oh yeah.
And then
and
then using the function of unique values to just reduce that to the 3 states we're looking at.
Why don't you duplicate the script? Call this FileMaker code method 1 or whatever. Yeah, just give it the name of that. So FileMaker, method 1. Method 1. We need method 1 and method 2 both. Yeah, there you go. And then so method 2. Why don't you adjust the code to go down that road? It's still different than the way I do it. That's why I always tell people there's always 10 ways of doing it. The trick is to find the fastest way. And in order to figure out the fastest way with this, you would have to load 10,000, 20, 50,000 records in it and have it chew on it and then get out the stopwatch, right? So iMog, either iMog has been drinking and is under the table and he's lost his mind, because normally he's chatty and now I think his head exploded. Top Cat says, wow, congrats. Spectre 207 says it's awesome. Yeah, they're going to definitely want the sample file. But keep going on that, Calvin. Do that other method. I always think for training exercise, that's about as good as it gets. We're showing you how to do it 3 different ways. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for my new list. I call it state summary. I should call it state list summary.
Okay, so Spectra 207 thinks you're doing pretty good. iMog last week, earlier, gave you a 7 out of 10. I'm expecting that your score today will go up from 7 out of 10, Calvin. We're hoping. So the scores will be coming in shortly here, yeah. Well, I don't know. 7 out of 10 is okay. You get to keep your job with 7 out of 10, but might not get invited to the Christmas party with only 7 out of 10.
Okay, so we'll see what happens with method 2. The only difference I'm imagining is that I think this one could take a little longer. And I'm wondering if, it changed the order. It isn't necessarily a problem.
Is that the order on the layout, or?
That would be, well, it's taking the list. It would be the creation order unless you sorted the list.
Yeah,
so
you'd want to sort the records first, right?
Yeah, let's try that. So right now, without sorting, it's New York, California, Florida. With sorting, We just got Florida. What happened there? We might need a show all when we go to the invoices layout. Show all and then sort.
That's your first in-flight error. One error. Oh my God. Your score is now down to 9 out of 10.
Okay. So here, let's try this again. I'm really curious why this, so I did it twice, and both times.
Well, I just updated correctly there, right? Or did I miss that?
Sort. And then.
So. Oh.
And then if I go set the variable there, well, it looks like I have 3 states.
Okay.
And then I will go through Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, the show all fixed it and the sort fixed it.
And then exit. Well, maybe it just needed to refresh or something. Because, yeah, that worked.
Yeah, it flashed right before you went. When you went over there, I saw it flash correctly. So Spectra says that you are so awesome and amazing that he's going to name his cat after you. Oh, wait a minute. He didn't say that.
Oh, right.
He says your cat is named Calvin, too. So he's biased about the cat named Calvin. That's a good name for a cat. I have like stupid 7 rescue cats. So we got Fluffy and Scotty and Pain in the Ass, and there's a bunch of cats' names. They names kind of vary depending upon how much mayhem they have in the family at the time. And I have one cat we call the Professor because she's always working out math and how to do stuff, and really smart cat. How is they get on the cabinet, maneuver through the cabinet, find the treats, knock the treats off the cabinet, which breaks the treats open. Then that cat feeds the treats to all the rest of the cats. So it's we have to almost like lock stuff up from like a toddler. So. The Professor. All right, so any questions? It's a little bit after 2 o'clock. Hopefully your brains are all not dead. iMog, oh, wait a minute. Oh. All right, so you says EFG gives you a 10 out of 10. iMog only gives you a 9 out of 10 because you came to the table with SQL. iMog's a hard person to keep happy. He is I'm assuming it's a he, but really tough customer. Man, I tell you, it's tough. I think Spectra could probably give you a 10 because you're named Calvin. So anyway, Calvin, it's actually quite good, and you really kicked ass on this thing. We'll need to comment just a little bit and put about information on here. As a reminder, for those of you who are here, you definitely want to check out. Let me jump out of here. I'm going to make the window a little bit smaller, Calvin, for the moment. I'm going to recommend that you check out our coaching services. If you have not had an opportunity to have a free coaching session, which is actually a pretty discounted service, feel free to reach out to support@rcconsulting.com. This is our coaching page here. If you go to fmcoaches.com, you're going to see that. Pretty awesome. And there's some additional information in here as well. But most of our coaching customers are typically $75 an hour for the most part. So feel free to check that out. If you are interested in training, once again, this course, let me adjust my camera here. Whoop. The training here, the video live stream is sponsored by fmtraining.tv. So upcoming training schedule is right here. I can make myself a little smaller here. Training schedule is down here. So you go to fmtraining.tv. You press the live tab, and it will show you the upcoming events. We're going to pick things up on Monday. We're talking about FileMaker Cloud 2, which is your deployment ideas or options for using the cloud. It's what we're using today. Pretty cool. It works really great. And then obviously we're going to be talking about just kind of general business ideas and habits, things like that. We're going to have some fun with April Fool's Day. We haven't totally figured this out, but had a couple thoughts on that. And then from the folks here, the comments here, we're going to dive into the tools menu in FileMaker. Once again, that's the script debugger, data viewer, and more importantly, really the developer utilities in there. It's the runtime creator and all that kind of stuff. Then on Friday, we're going to get back into the basics of CRM for those of you who are interested in that. And then Monday, the following Monday, will be a deprecation of features in FileMaker, things that have been deprecated recently, things that we might miss, things that are probably going to get removed. And I can provide as much background context of that as I can. So once again, if you're interested in getting our training, I'm going to recommend that you check out the training website and you press the bundles tab, and we have bundles here that gets you all the current training. We are working on FileMaker 19 training. I think they are going to call it FileMaker 19. It's best guess. They are actively talking about kind of the new things that are in it on the website. So it's not really a secret. And so that's kind of an interesting thing, but we are working on our new book and the new training for that, and that will all be coming available. So if you're part of our annual subscription, you're going to get the training for free. So you want to keep your subscription up to date. So any final questions? Yeah, no, I'm not going to dress up. Well, Calvin can dress up as Calvin Powers, but they want to know if we're going to do cosplay on. I assume I said that right. My daughter's big on that. She likes to do that kind of stuff. One of them. So anyway, but I don't have any outfits besides my dinosaur head. So anyway, Calvin, any final comments about the awesome job that you did here today?
No comments. I'm going to clean this up, add some comments into the scripts, and so that before it's available for download.
Right, absolutely. All right, well, I greatly appreciate everyone. Appreciate it. We'll see you on Monday. Have a good week and stay safe. And if you have any questions about what's going on in terms of the world of FileMaker, feel free to check out our daily live stream broadcasts, which are Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific. Once again, shout out to Netherlands, shout out to Texas, shout out to the East Coast, shout out to Austin. There's a bunch of places people are watching us from all over the world. So we look forward to seeing you Monday, 1 o'clock local time. Have a good day.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and starts a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but then he makes the grab.